All right. Well, welcome back to Safety Nights podcast, where we dig into the stories, strategies shaping the future of safety. I'm your host, Zach Johnston, and today we're joined by one of the most influential voices in the modern EHS world. Please welcome Abby Ferri, a safety leader. She's an author, speaker, driving force behind the NSC, National Safety Council. She has a master's degree in environmental health and safety, along with a CSP and ARM credentials. She's dedicated her career to helping organizations rethink how they approach safety, culture, and risk. Abby Ferri, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the intro. It's all
Yeah,
true. Thank
it's
you.
good. I hope I nailed that right. Yeah. I
Yeah,
try to do my research, but you never know,
thanks.
right? So I would love to start things off. I know you have been in the space for a very long time. How'd you get started in safety? What made you
So,
pick this as a career?
yeah, by accident, right? Like a lot of
It's how
people,
everyone says.
right? Not literally an accident. I didn't get hurt, thankfully. But I was working in a construction office during high school and college.
Okay.
And that was back in the day when you'd still, make copies and fax things and have an actual physical paycheck delivered to your desk. And
The good old
so
days.
yeah, it was good. So I would deliver these 2 paychecks to these 2 empty offices, and magically, the next morning, the paychecks were gone. I'm like, "What do these people do?" And I learned they're the safety guys. And so I met, Eddie and John, who are the safety guys at this company, and they had both gone to the same college that I did. And so they recommended I do this master's in environmental health and safety program because, you'll have a master's in 1 year. It was a 1-year program. And so I got to the end of just 3 years of undergrad and I was done. I had an undergraduate degree in
Okay.
exercise science. And I thought, I am not ready for, the real world right now. I feel like I still need that 1 more year of college. So I took their advice and I went into the MEHS program and loved it. I just really liked construction too. And at that time, this is like 2002, 2003, a lot of my classmates were vying for the same jobs with
Yes.
like 3M and the old, what is it, the Kodak lab out there, the Lawrence Livermore lab, and other types of jobs that were pretty similar. And nobody wanted to touch construction. And so whenever past graduates would come back that were from construction and come and talk to us, everyone would just say, "Oh, just talk to Abby. She's interested. We're not." And I was like, "You guys are crazy." So,
Awesome.
yeah, so through connections while being a student and having speakers come in and going to events, I got my first job in construction before graduation, which was pretty cool. So I left northern Minnesota and went out to Southern California for my first job in construction safety. And I feel like I just didn't look back. The boss there was pretty cool. The president of the company was awesome. He basically handed me my first corporate Amex and was like, "Here, go do what safety people do." I thankfully didn't say out loud, "I really don't know what that is,"
Yeah,
because
exactly. First
he
time on
let
the
me
job.
learn. Yeah.
That's
So I
awesome.
got involved with, AGC of San Diego, and I feel like that safety committee, like, raised me as a young safety professional, so I'm grateful for all of those people, and many of them are still, friends and connections of mine to this day. So, yeah, so that's how I got started and how I pretty much got hooked into staying in safety in some way, shape, or form throughout my career, whether it was working directly for a construction company or getting into the safety side and risk control with insurance and carriers and brokers. I ran my own consulting firm for a while. I
Okay.
worked for an insurtech startup, and then I'm here at NSC. So it's like the best combination of my skills are like it's just really well suited for this current role I have at National Safety Council. So it all kind of came together finally for me.
Now you can connect the dots looking back now. It looks like a little. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I have to ask, so you are a woman in safety and in construction. So I imagine you must have stood out a little bit on the job sites initially. How was that going up to people? And as a safety person too, you got your vest on, your clipboard out, you're probably, you know, recommending courses of action to people that are doing their job
Yeah.
day to day. So did you have any interesting experiences there early on in your career?
I mean, nothing I would say that's really terrible and awful. I know,
Good.
like, hearing the stories of other women in construction and other male populated fields, I definitely am glad that I don't know, I kind of like escaped unscathed, which is,
Awesome.
you know, yeah, awesome, but also kind of sad that so many don't. Like light harassment and stupid things said and whatnot. That was par for the course, like back then and
Yes. Yeah.
throughout.
Especially back then. I was going to say, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a different time. 10
Yep.
years ago, even a different time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's, yeah.
And I tried not to stand out. Like back then we didn't have like workwear
Yeah.
that was geared towards women. And so I'm in a boxy safety vest just like the guys. I'm in
Yeah. Yeah.
Carhartt jeans just like the guys, wearing the Timberland Pro boots just like the guys before they had the women's version.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
I
I
mean
didn't think
it
about that. We do
yeah,
got to touch on that to remind me about the
I
PPE. I read
okay.
that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I
That's a
predate a
whole
lot of
thing
that
I
stuff.
never thought about once until I was reading your bio.
Mhm.
That makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
the
wild.
male Timberlands out there,
Yes.
were they steel toed?
Oh, yeah, of
Oh,
course.
yeah, of course, right? Yeah, yeah,
Of
okay,
course.
yeah. They're
So,
heavy boots,
yeah,
really
they
heavy
are.
boots, yeah. You can get a workout in just
But
strapping those on. So,
exactly. But, like, early on, I feel like I had a sense of self-awareness that, like, these guys, some of them are old enough to be my dad, and they don't wanna hear it from me. And so I understood that, but I also knew, like, well, I have a job to do too that assists them and works with them. So I have to come together with them somehow. And so what I did, and this was really guided by one of the project managers I worked for. His name is Vince, and I'd check in with Vince in the trailer the first week of work, and he'd look at me like, "What are you doing? Go outside." Like,
wow,
in the nicest
okay.
possible mentor way, like, "Go outside, kid, like, go walk around." And so I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to walk around." Vince doesn't wanna see me back in the trailer, probably till coffee break, maybe till lunch. So I'm gonna walk around this huge job site and, okay, I can't just walk around and be quiet. I can't just walk around and like stare at people with a clipboard because that's not going anywhere either. And with like a digital camera, in my pocket or like on my wrist, because that's what we had back then. So I would just start asking questions, like as simple as, "What are you doing?" Like not in an accusatory way, but like, "Tell me about what you're doing because I've never seen this work before." And so sometimes I was getting a load of BS and I didn't know
Yes.
it. And, just take notes, take some pictures, go back to my desk and realize that was a bunch of BS, and then study up, ask questions of the project manager, project engineers, superintendents, that would talk to me and find out, the real deal. And then eventually it's mostly men that I worked with in those early years, very few women on the jobs back then. So I would go back to my desk and research things. And, at some point the guys would ask me like, "Hey, could we do this better? Or could we get better
Mm,
gloves? These gloves are terrible. Or our glasses are fogging up." So getting better PPE was like like a gateway to like trust with
yeah.
the field people where, they would complain to me basically. They're like kvetching, "Our glasses are terrible, our gloves are awful, these are ugly, I don't like them." And then I would take that back to my desk and I'd come back to them with samples. And they were like,
Mm,
"What in the heck?" And so they'd try the different gloves and try the different glasses and be like, "Hey, Abby, these are great. These are terrible." I'm like, "All right." So then I'd order the good ones and then they'd wear them. And I'd see people at the grocery store on the weekend and the guy has his safety glasses on. And I'm like, "Okay,
wow.
but that's
Really
cool."
nice selection then, yeah. Style
Yeah, they must
and
have been
safety.
nice.
There we go.
Yeah. So that was like my early lesson. And it's funny now hearing about, people talk about HOP, human and organizational performance, and these conversations and whatnot. And I feel that that was just something I organically did when I was young in the profession because I just kind of knew I'm not going to get anywhere if I'm telling people, like
Yes.
doing safety to people. I have to do safety with them. And so, PPE trials, it gave way to, okay, let's talk about this 25-foot deep trench we have to dig on the next job. And now I'm not just talking to the guys in the field as we're looking at it and it's wrong, but now I'm talking to, the estimator and we're actually talking about the plan for an upcoming job. So it was just like educating the field and then educating the office and finding allies in project managers and superintendents and then eventually estimators and others. But I think what helped me early on is I had the president of the company's support. He would basically say, "If that's what Abby said, that's what we should do." So that was, kind of fun. I didn't let that go to my head, but often I would even ask him strategically to be in a meeting so that it was visible support for something, if it was a tough conversation I was having with someone. So, but I will say I did get a ton of unsolicited advice about how I could be a good safety person early on, which was you need to fire somebody and then they'll know that you're serious. And I don't think I ever did that in my career, that I personally fired someone. It just wasn't my style. I didn't see that that was the way to do things. And so I'm glad I didn't take that advice.
Oh, that's amazing. There's so much there even to unpack and you did so much of this intuitive. It's funny. I interviewed a gentleman last week, VP of safety. The episode might be out now, so I won't spoil the whole
Okay.
episode. But at the end, yeah, he's asking him, what made you successful? Where would you advise someone who's just getting started? And a lot of the lessons, it sounds like you just kind of had working with people, listening first, coming as an ally, not as a more carrot, less stick, I guess we could say, right?
Exactly.
Which does seem to
Yeah.
be the problem a lot of the time
Yep.
when I go in somewhere and see safety's maybe not where they want it to be. There's a lot of stick and there's not a lot of camaraderie
Right.
or collaboration. So
Yeah,
good
and
on
I
you.
think also, like, being a woman in construction safety back then and being, like, visibly young too, is that the
Mm,
workers and basically anyone I worked with, they didn't think I knew anything anyway, and
right.
so I could, whether that's good or bad, probably not great, but then I had that license to just ask as many questions as possible because they just thought, "Oh, she doesn't know," and there were some questions I would ask, spoiler to some of the guys back then, I knew the answer, but I asked it anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
what
so
you
then
learned from those first
right,
couple BS sessions you had then.
exactly. So when
There you
people would
go.
ask me that question back then about what's it like to be a woman in construction, I would say sometimes it might be easier than a guy that was my age back then, because there may have been assumptions about them in a different way that might have been negative, but I was able to see, have that self-awareness and just be curious and treat every day like a field trip, really.
Yeah, curiosity and empathy. Those are men might have a little bit of a harder time embodying sometimes. So that's yeah, good. Some
Yeah.
lessons there. So from there, we're going to flip the script a little bit. Was there any point in your career that something just went terribly wrong?
Oh, man, I would say it's like mid-career and
Okay.
even not a little bit fairly recently too, where kind of old habits dying hard of like putting up with some things where it's like you don't need to put up with this type of treatment or bad team dynamics that I could see myself out of it if I wanted to. But often I would stick around to like finish a project or for whatever reason, thought I had to stick around when, I could have just left and found myself a better situation and a better team. So in the past, I know early in my career, like one of my early insurance jobs, I remember a hiring manager saying, "Wow, you've really bounced around a lot." And I said, "Dude, are you aware this is construction in Southern
Yes.
California in the 2000s?"
Kind of par for
Like
the
a
course.
housing market just collapsed.
Yes.
There's a lot of people finding different employment. And so being able to like own my story and be confident and not be like, change jobs a lot. Yeah, that could look bad. And how to make that look better? Well, you can't because people look at dates and it is what it is.
It
And
is what
so
it is.
so just being able to tell my story of, where I've been and connecting the experience and how it connects to, the current opportunity or whatever it might be.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Is
like
there
assertive.
assertive? Yeah, I like that. Well,
Yeah.
and you had to be. I mean, you were
Yep.
young, you got out there in the field, you went through college fast, so I can only imagine. And then you were in an industry where there probably wasn't a lot of other, females, and probably
Yeah.
not. I mean, is like most jobs, there's not a lot of safety people
Yeah.
either, right?
True.
So it's
Yep.
really good that you at least had the leader. Most of these companies, is funny. I see this trend. The people that seem to do really well and the people that tend to stay in safety started with some good leadership support from the top down somewhere, and it seems
Yeah.
so essential to company success. So hopefully everyone takes that to heart in their job interviews. Do you have
Yeah.
support from someone up top
It's
before you take
really
this job?
hard. Yeah, and it's really hard as a safety professional to interview at a company and get that gauge on what is the real management commitment because everyone's going to tell you like, "Oh, it's great. Yeah, safety starts at the top, blah blah blah."
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
you
the
get there and
story.
it's like, "Wow." So, I think yeah, I had never thought about how having a good boss early on actually empowered a lot of what I did later on. Just knowing that there are good bosses out there
Is
that
huge.
understand. So, that's helpful. But also, I've done a lot of talking recently to safety professionals about burnout and preventing that.
Yeah.
is that we have to manage our expectations, that a lot of, where we are as safety professionals and where we think, the culture or how safety should be done at an organization is way different than what the management will actually support. And so if we could just be, a student, I always say be a student of your company and of the management and really understand where they're at, because then that helps you decide, okay, how am I going to communicate on this? Because a safety person can't just come in and like start at like the top, we're going to do these things and leading indicators and whatever, when the management team is still looking for what's our TRIR.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the
you have
basics.
to see where they're at and then make those little incremental steps towards where you think they should be. And sometimes, it's not a fit for some safety professionals, but I don't think people should quit, like rage quit on an employer just because they don't align on culture and expectations. I think there's a lot of great work that can be done that in safety, it's difficult. But I think I I felt the most proud of projects that I did with people that were really difficult. And we worked
Very
through it,
good.
we learned something, and now we're buddies. And then we go on to the next project and it's much better. So I like that. I like that challenge.
Yeah, you're really building some friendships, I guess, in safety in some ways that, a lot of these guys are stuck at one site. I mean, we're talking
Yes.
construction, obviously it's job to job, but a lot of these guys, it's manufacturing plant. They're stuck at one, they don't
Right.
have a lot of visibility. Safety does get to cross borders in ways that maybe other career opportunities don't allow for. So that if you leverage
Yes.
it, it's a pretty cool
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, I actually did a presentation with one of my friends, Lindsay Bell. We talked about the privileged safety professional, about
Okay.
how a
I
safety
like that.
professional
That's a
is,
flip on this script.
yeah, like how great that we have that privilege to be out on the manufacturing floor or out on the construction site. And then later we're like giving a presentation to the executive team or presenting something to management, or we're on like a project management meeting or something. Like we're at all these different levels. We like get to peek into like all these different parts of the organization. Who else really gets to do that in such like a fun field trippy way? Like we get to do that. How cool is it? And so what are you going to do with that? It helps you prevent burnout where you're at, because then you understand where the company's at and how to message things. Also, like selfishly on your career path, what if you like operations better? Like,
Right.
okay, align with a project manager or director of operations, and you can learn underneath them while you're doing safety. And then you're untouchable, right? Like unbeatable, because you're now an operations trained person that's also safety background. Like that
It's
is,
huge.
unicorn status right there for some people. So we have a lot that we have access to, like on the job training almost for a career path.
That's awesome. No, and I think that's, I mean, really one of the goals here is to get more people in safety, to get people hopefully maybe reignited a little bit if they're, because
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people that are in that boat where maybe they had a bad job and things aren't, the numbers aren't where people want them, or they have what they feel impossible tasks in front of them without enough support. And so it's good to remind ourselves it's a really great profession and we're doing a real mission too. I mean, I talk to a lot of operations guys and all they ever get to think about is how many units they're producing. Quality is, it's a great job, but the impact we get to make if we do it right, just it's a mission you can just really get behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And you have to
yeah,
collect that bad experience badge,
yes.
or that tattoo,
We all,
whatever,
yeah,
like
you
as you go on your career path. Like you have to make that stop. I think everyone ends up having that and you're better for it, because in safety, sometimes learning from that terrible experience that gives you so much, credibility and stories as you move on to the next roles, that, in the moment it feels awful sometimes, but once you get through it and either you stay at the organization or you go somewhere else, it just makes you that much stronger as a safety professional.
that's awesome. Well, and one thing I don't normally ask, but since you have the expertise, talk to me a little bit about the claims process, the insurance side of the house. And the reason I wanted to preface this for everybody listening, I've found being on the tech side and the consulting side that is a real lever in the right organization to unlock more funds, to unlock more resources. If you understand that game, for everybody listening that's not interfacing with their TPA, or maybe that's not part of their role, but just helping them understand how organizations are looking at it, because that's the bottom dollar line of safety. Any lessons learned or any wisdom you can share would be welcome.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that AGC safety committee that raised me, they're the ones that taught me that you have to be in the room where there's conversations about workers' comp, general liability, auto insurance, property insurance, because all of that ties into what you do at work
Yeah, you
as a
do.
safety professional. And so if you I remember it was like, if you don't know what your EMR is, then you're not informed enough. You should know that as a safety professional. And, there was some on one end of the spectrum where they were managing all of the workers' comp claims, like very personally. And then others that were, the consultant within the company as needed for a workers' comp claim, whether it's the investigation, helping the worker, get back to work, things like that. So I think just starting with the understanding that in safety, you should have some kind of visibility into, at minimum, the workers' comp, because that's
Yes.
affecting the people. If people get hurt at work, it could be a workers' comp claim. So you should know a little bit about that. And so how I started that at my first job was just asking the question, like, well, who does workers'
Mm,
comp around here? And it was, payroll and the CFO.
that's,
So I would
yep.
talk to them and, they realized, oh, she can help us because Abby goes into the field and talks to the workers. Like, this is great. So that's how I plugged into it at first, at my first job.
That's amazing. No, that's a good piece. I really do encourage everyone because I do think the projects that I've seen successful when they really want to do a revamp or they want to start changing culture, if the budgetary authorities do not have that piece, it's really hard. It's really hard. And they're typically, the bad news is, I mean, working with the Fortune 5 for a number of years, the self-insurance, the claim dollars a year is a huge spend, and adjusting that a little bit can really get you some higher, if you're in that place, it can really get you some visibility higher up in the org, get you hopefully some more funding and get you some more recognition that'll allow you to hopefully drive more change.
For
So
sure.
yeah, huge. It's huge.
Yeah, and your insurance partners, at your workers' comp carrier, at your company's insurance broker, think of them as your data partners because they
Mm,
have insights, they have tools that you might not have, especially if you're a smaller, medium-sized business. And so that reporting can help you as a safety professional communicate, return on investment or other
yes.
project info to your executives because the executives, they get, the high level gee whiz like presentation from the broker and the carrier partners, but they're not getting into the weeds like we can. Like safety
Yes.
pros, we can really get into the weeds. So look at those risk control professionals or even the underwriter, or
Mm,
there's an advocate, claims advocate, or other account representative that you can plug into, and you can get really fancy with some of the data, which is really helpful. And also, let's not forget risk control consultants. I mean, I've been one on the carrier and the broker side. And there's so many companies that leave that like consulting money on the table. So
yes.
if you're like a medium to large business and it's likely that your insurance broker and your various carriers have risk control dollars and hours set aside for you, you have to use those.
Use them.
Yeah, please call your friendly risk control professionals because that's what they're there to do. And there's awesome
Amazing.
people on that side of the house.
Yeah. Well, and I'm telling you, again, I can't reiterate enough because I've just had so many projects like this. They have the missing a lot of, they're like the DART rate, the TRIR. They can spin off our top 5 risk categories right off the top of their head as a safety professional, but they have no idea how that actually translates into the bottom line. And the TPA, the risk assess, I mean, they have the data there.
Yeah,
And they're usually running reports on their end, stuff that you don't even have to
exactly.
recreate. So
Exactly.
amazingly underutilized resource. And I think as a safety professional, it's just good to understand that piece of the business too. It'll help you level up your career, almost guaranteed, if you can talk
Yeah.
like that.
And then it's a
So
way that you can start to show your impact too. I
exactly.
know that that was something I started to learn is that, okay, I know back in the day, okay, fine. I was looking at TRIR and other OSHA recordable rates and saying, look, since I've been here, now 5 years later, 3 years later, look at how we are. And then also looking at, cost per claim,
Huge.
claim severity that people are returning to work right away. They don't have to have like a lost time incident because the injuries aren't as severe. So it's a way for you also to demonstrate, like, look, I've had an impact because a lot of times that's hard to communicate because sometimes people look at safety very simply as like, well, safety is the absence of injuries and claims.
Exactly.
Okay, well, not
How do we
quite,
quantify that?
but right.
Yeah.
So you can start to quantify it if that's something that's needed at your organization.
No, that's amazing. I think that's huge. I would definitely encourage everyone listening on that. So digging into this, and this is a hard question. Maybe you don't even have an answer. Was there an incident or an injury or an event in your career that really changed the way you looked at things or bolstered your desire to make an impact? Was there any moment that was kind of critical where something really went wrong and it showed you a lesson or how important your job is as a whole?
Yeah, I just had, like, all these, like, I
Okay,
remember their
good.
names, first name, last name, almost
Yes,
time of
yes.
year, everything. Yeah, I mean, fortunately, in my job site career, I never dealt with a fatality. I did deal, unfortunately, with several serious injuries, and serious incidents too, like crane in the power lines, tipped over crane. No one's hurt, but we're in big trouble
We're in
with
big
the
trouble.
the project owner, and, everyone was looking at me. So, I dealt with those things sometimes not in the way that I personally would have wanted to. And so
Mm,
those were kind of like the battle scars that it was like, I really didn't want to handle it that way, but I was kind of forced to, like in a punitive manner, remove an operator from a job site or all job sites on all military projects
okay.
in one case. And then also a serious injury where a worker, he had to be hospitalized. And so that meant lost time injury. And the project we were on at the time was for a very difficult project owner
Mm,
on a federal project. And they, if you got a lost time injury, that was like, you're terrible. Like, you're one step away from banishment from further projects. And there were suggestions to bring a computer with safety training to the hospital for the worker to watch safety videos while they were while they were being monitored, for severe internal injuries at a clinic or at a hospital. And, their family is there with them. And I just thought that was the grossest thing I could think of. And I said, we have to take this hit because there's no way I'm driving over to the hospital with a computer and sitting there bedside with this guy to watch safety videos. That has to be,
yes.
it was just not how I felt we should treat people.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully with all the talk now about shifting away from, TRIR, DART, things like
Yes.
that, uh, that hopefully people can have better conversations about how we treat people, making sure the worker gets what they need after an injury. And, a company like ours at that time that didn't have a lot of severe injuries, it's like, we're going to go down for this one, really? But back then, that's kind of how it was. It was very punitive. So, yeah. So when I talk to people about leading indicators and having conversations with your contractors and supply chain, that's the kind of stuff I think about is this person in a hospital and bringing them safety training. Come on now. Is that what anyone really wants out of their safety program when they put these requirements down? I don't think so. And then, another one that stands out uh, in my career, it was after I left a particular company and there was a fatality. And I knew the worker. I knew him when he was young, before he was a foreman, before he was a superintendent, very early in his career. We were at the Christmas party, his family, like, know the person. And to hear of a fatality and to know that it's someone that you know personally and shared good times with on the job and laughter and creativity. It was just heartbreaking. And to also know that what killed him is something that was a focus
Understandable.
back when I was at the company. And, always was kind of a tough subject where people wanted to carry, old school patterns and habits. And it was really difficult to get through to people. So, you know, like people my professors would say like the OSHA regulations are written in blood. It's like, yeah, and that blood was already spilled. So why are we having this stuff happen now when we know better? Getting into, I mean, not so much like human behavior, but it's like there's some people talking about this concept of pressure and capacity in
Yes.
people. And so I think about that a lot, that often these construction trades, especially, that the hardest work, the highest risk work is being subbed out, we're pushing
It
it to like
is.
the lowest and lowest levels. And these people are just stretched to the max. And, they are hearing they have to get this job done. So it's like, all right, boss, it has to get done. And they just run in and do it sometimes. I just wish sometimes I could like go and be like, no, like stop, slow down for a minute. This is wrong. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of like every safety professional has. a story
moments.
that might be similar, different in severity maybe or connection, but those are definitely, some of my stories that stick with me and shape, what I do to this day.
I think it's amazing, and the reason we always try to bring this up is because it's so easy in the day to day to forget how important the human impact is. And I think as safety leaders, we also have to be advocates like you were with
Yep.
the computer in this instance. You have to be an advocate also for the people because it is too easy for these organizations. I don't think of any malice, but they're a company and they look at the bottom line too much. And say good safety culture seems to revolve heavily on the human element and keeping that somewhat the focus. So those stories are amazing. I guess flipping the switch on that a little bit. Was there any programs that you're especially proud of? I mean, could be recent, could be from a while back. Is there anything that you really feel like safety came in, made a change? How was that orchestrated? What did you learn from one of those success stories?
Yeah, gosh.
I
There's
know
a
it's a hard
lot of like
question.
yeah, there's a lot of like small custom examples where it's like not this huge sweeping thing, but just
It's
like,
just safety. It's safety though.
yeah,
It's the
it's
little
like
things sometimes. It
right,
really is.
right. Like we had back to back to back, like 5 to 8 hand injuries where people just were lacerating like right through their hand. And we found out that they were free cutting, just like hanging on to a piece of wood and just like rip, like cut. And I remember it was one of our workers who everyone loves him because he's fast, he's productive, he's cool, he's a nice person. Like sometimes he can lead on safety, bilingual, just like, the world is yours if you want it.
Package.
And he had one of the worst hand lacerations I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, oh my God, how we have to look at this person as a complete worker. And if he's not bringing the safety to the mix, is he really that great? And so I was able to, kind of level with him about this and he felt, just he felt terrible and it's like, you can't I'm not like trying to beat you up, man,
No, of
but like
course.
you are one of my examples I use a lot. So I want
Yes.
to have a good example. So
Yes.
understand like this influence, before I understood what an influencer was, like he was an influencer on the job. And so we were able to have like a comment and a suggestion forum. I mean, this is old. So it was like I
Amazing.
set up like an 888 number for people to call in
Okay. I
anonymously
love it. I
and
love
literally
it.
had a safety suggestion box. And it was like, all right, what's going on with these hand injuries? Let's do something about it. And we came up with like, some really great ideas. We implemented ideas. We gave the workers whose ideas we implemented like a $50 gift card to a
That's
steak
awesome.
restaurant, which also used to go further back then too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was actually cool, even though it sounds not great. And we were able to go a couple of years without any serious hand injuries and also saw like the proactive steps, like building sawhorses and having them placed in different areas so that they're right there.
They're
So the
accessible.
worker isn't like, I got to take 15 steps. I'm just going to rip it right here. So that was one of my most fun accomplishments was just like running that program and like seeing it through. And then now I'd say I'm glad that like myself personally, that I took kind of a safety crash test dummy approach to safety technology. Like back when mobile apps were first coming out related to
Okay. Early
safety, I
adopter.
was like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to tell you about it on LinkedIn. So I'm glad that I did that, and it's funny, like, now people will talk to me about, like, AI and other innovation and technology and safety, and I'm a dabbler, I'm not, like, implementing programs at companies right now, but, like, I can dabble in these technologies and give people my take. And so but my overall take is that, the human element is key. And so, especially as, like, if innovation technology is ramping up, that human touch has to be ramping up too. So, I've just been really cautious lately of anyone that wants to, like, gather metrics to optimize people
Yes.
like human beings, it's like we don't need to squeeze everything we can out of people in the workplace because guess what? They have to go home too. And, now that I have my daughter's 12 going on 13, so I
Wow. Fun
understand,
time.
yeah, I understand having a kid and like that you need to have some of yourself left after work. You can't just leave it all on the table at work like you're a professional hockey player or something. That's not what we're doing. So I'm always like really cautious about, well, what's the human side of this technology? how are we talking to people about it and introducing it? And how is this technology that's geared towards a safety professional actually helping you connect with people more? Because if it's taking you away from people, and even executives too, like if they're not having the time to go out and see what's going on at their projects and sites, what are we doing? You know, and I'm not talking about through like the lens of like computer vision and video, video capture, motion capture stuff, but like real, like seeing people in person at their sites. I think we have to hang on to that. Otherwise, it's going to become like video game land, right? That like you're just dial up this lever, dial up this, move this here, and oh, the data says this, but we still have people. And I could say that like, oh, we still have people.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
people ruin everything. But that's the beauty of the workplace is that, we have these interesting, quirky, sometimes terrible personalities that we have to deal with and we have to, work on a project together. So, but again, that's like the best part of the human experience at work is actually having all these crazy people come together and collaborate on
Do
something
something.
and turn it out on time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and you said a
Yeah.
couple things there too that I definitely want to highlight because you had a big injury, but then that guy was a leader, and you were able to leverage something that was terrible and use that to raise awareness for the people on the ground. And I think, again, I hear a lot of these stories about programs, and it usually comes back to getting the people that are doing the work more engaged. Like if you miss that, you're never going to make real forward momentum. And there always are people at every plant or every facility that may not have the title, but are still a leader on the floor. And so
Yes.
going straight to that source can maybe pay some dividends, versus a big safety training that no one really listens to. So I think that's really powerful. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's finding those influencers in your
the
workplace.
influencers. Yeah, it's really what it
Yep.
is. No, it's true. It's very true. Well, I guess, as we're kind of winding down, and it's funny, we were talking about technology, so I do have some questions about that. But I would love your take on, especially your take, given your history and now part of the National Safety Council. What do you think, especially in the States, is broken with safety? Is there anything from the legislative standpoint or just the thought process and methodology that you'd like to see change?
Wow. Um,
Sorry, I'm throwing the hard ones at you.
Such an easy question.
Oh, good.
No, honestly, I think we're definitely at like an interesting point
Yes.
where, the data's saying that, okay, serious incidents are actually going down
Yeah.
while the
The
fatalities are
fatalities.
flat
Yep.
or increasing. So I think if there's anything to like dig in on data and optimize and really see what's going on, it's on those fatalities. So I'm glad that, National Safety Council and others are focusing on serious incidents and fatalities or SIFs for short. So National Safety Council has a SIF prevention model that's accessible to anybody. So it's free. The research and resources are already there. And it's kind of like a software almost that like
Mm,
we'll update it. As new information comes out, we will update this SIF prevention model. So I think that's one is just focusing on in construction, people call it the stuff that can kill you, or if I can swear, the shit that kills you. And so that really resonates with the field. I know if I had that language back when I was in construction, maybe I could have done some different things if we were communicating that way. So that's one. Another one, again, me being heavily influenced here at National Safety Council, we have a strong focus on roadway. And, there's just the American streets and highways and freeways and whatnot. That is where, that's everyone's workplace. Looking at like gig economy and, more people that are taking on part-time gig type of work, they're on the road. And so there's just so much more exposure out there just on the roads. And so I feel in the US, we have like our rugged individualism and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't tell me how to drive kind of mentality. But I really think in the workplace we could have a lot of influence on roadway safety, which I don't know what else to say about that, but NSC has a ton of, initiatives and resources and whatnot related to roadway safety, whether it's for kids that aren't even driving yet, through those that are learning how to drive, and then, everyone else thereafter. Yeah, I think SIFs and roadway, and also realizing that crossover where we have, fatalities that are
yes.
happening on the road.
On the road.
I was privy to a lot of that when I was working in insurance and seeing the stats from our clients. It's just terrible what happens out there on the roads, and some that no one would even see because it's on like this rural road somewhere and it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's still happening. So yeah, SIF prevention and roadway safety with the influence coming from the workplace. I think we can do a lot there that
Better.
we haven't quite scratched the surface yet.
No, I agree. I think that's a good segue. And I will say, and we'll talk about technology next. There is some disproportionate returns I've found. That's actually one area that I think technology is a little bit overlooked. And there is a lot of amazing tools now that can really help. Are people going too fast? Are they blowing stop signs? Are they awake? There's cameras now
Right.
that can use AI. There's instances there where you can get ahead of it a little bit and use a little more leading data to identify risky behaviors. Maybe it's the driver, maybe it's the training, maybe he's under too much pressure. Again, back to your time statement.
Hmm.
That's a lot of the problems. He's working too late, he's tired, whatever the situation may be. He's behind schedule. A lot of times those really up the risk factor on the road. So, and it's tie downs and prep before. A lot of
Yeah.
my big incidents. I had one with a big rental company the other day they didn't do proper tie down. They got busy, they forgot. They don't do a lot of training around it. They have a lot of new people. So there's a ton of risks there that may not come out often, but when they do,
Yeah.
they can
It's huge.
really make a big impact. So in the wrong direction. So well, and speaking about, technology, is there anything, obviously NSE, and I wholeheartedly agree, just your content alone, I read very regularly. I've
Awesome.
quoted many of your studies before, so or your anecdotal evidence, at least, if nothing else. Is there anything that you felt moved the needle for you in any of your safety jobs in terms of a tech stack or a recommendation on that front?
Honestly, like being a practitioner in safety in a workplace and not in an insurance setting, I feel like I'm too stone age. I was
Yeah.
out of those day-to-day um responsibilities and safety before even mobile apps were being more widely used.
Widely used.
So,
It's a
yeah,
big topic today. It is. But again, I talk to a lot of safety professionals who are kind of either it's very new territory for them because again, they've been in the business for 30 years. And yeah, I think I'm hoping that the future of safety is able to leverage technology to help us get, because like you mentioned, the minor non-severe incidents have definitely had a nice trend down, but we still just can't quite get a handle now on the majors and the SIFs, and unfortunately those are the ones that you really 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 want to address. So maybe we can
yeah.
plug tech in.
Well, you mentioned fleet and technology, and so I would say when I was doing day-to-day safety for, directly for an employer, that was when telematics arrived on the
Yes.
scene for vehicles, fleet vehicles. And so I know back then, people, the drivers, they hated it. And I've seen that shift where, as drivers are exonerated from, blame and incidents, that they're like, yeah, this is the real deal because I'm usually doing the right thing. And if you want to see a boring in cab cam of me just doing the right thing all the time, whatever, and if it leads to exonerating me from a claim, that's awesome. And so I think more drivers, especially on the telematics, that people are more open to it, which I think lends itself to maybe computer vision in, static sites like manufacturing. I think there's some computer vision applications in construction as well. I'm not quite sold that like that's the best thing available. And, that's being improved every day because it's
I was gonna
definitely
say,
like
I
the
think
low
it's
hanging
not
fruit.
quite there yet, and I've been
Yeah.
biasly actually been in the AI game for a while, specifically in safety, and I have to admit, I think it's good. There are applications
Yeah.
that are incredible, where I've seen it absolutely transform lives. I did some integrations with a manufacturing line, a paper mill, and they had a serious, again, back to that ops piece versus the safety piece. Need to get a number of production units out. They got 3 shifts a day, so a lot going down 24 hours a day they're running, and yet it's easy to get your hands stuck in the roller, and it's a pretty much guaranteed fatality if that happens. So it's high risk, and they couldn't get the employees to stop. They were properly trained, and it ultimately just came down to being able to plug in an AI tool in that instance that stopped the machine instantly, and they prevented some SIFs. So there are areas, but it's
Yeah.
not quite widespread yet. It's not quite ready for everyone, I don't think. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I think using video, whether it's from telematics, from the in-cab camera, or it's computer vision or motion capture for ergonomics purposes, I think people are open to like the, you know, athlete style of like, let's roll tape and see, you can see what you did. Often people start, they see how they're lifting and they're like, man, that's atrocious. And they get it. And then you have the data and you can show them and coach them and they can see in real time their improvements. So I think that, again, it's technology and the humans. And
It's the
so
human
uh,
element. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I've seen people buy the most expensive tools and no one uses them. And it's just a data collection and it doesn't inform the field. If you're not taking the data out in the field and
Right.
doing something with it, then it's really, and that is the trap sometimes. We need better tools. And it's like, well,
Do you?
you need to do something. You need to do something when you have the data, whether it's from paper or whether it's from, a digital source. So no, I agree.
Yeah, it just super quick on that. I think a lot of safety professionals might feel that they're behind on, let's say just AI, like as a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
concept. But they don't have to feel like that because what safety people have is data. And so if
Mm,
you're able to take, like you said, on paper, however it is, that you have your data, there's plenty of, AI platforms, large language models, machine learning platforms that you can just take your existing data and learn from it. And
learn
then
from it.
as you go forward, collect more context rich data to then use predictive analytics tools and things like that for the future. But right now, you can just start small with the data that you already have.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and I guess to close things out, I know we're getting there. Thank you. It was great conversation. Anything you think about safety the next 5 or 10 years? People that are just, like maybe in your position when you started. You got any predictions for us that we'll see if come true?
I have like some concerns
Okay,
and
concerns.
with
We can start there. Yeah.
early career professionals coming in using AI tools
Yes.
that they may not understand the context quite yet, but they're jumping into using AI tools that maybe aren't fit for the context or aren't even like employer sponsored. Like they're just going to Perplexity, Chat GPT, whatever, and just using the tool. So I think as people are educated more on that or maybe getting burned by using these public platforms, that they'll start to understand the importance of context as we're using these AI tools. And then I think what kind of goes with that is that, yes, we have to have early career people have like a very entry level job because, and then, grow within it. And I'm seeing just so many retirements and so many people that are close to retirement that I'm getting concerned that these folks have had great careers because they're the ones that raised me in my early career and they've done a lot and they deserve to chill in retirement. And so if organizations aren't doing something meaningful with their people that are retirement ready by pairing them with early career people in a meaningful way to mentor them on the industry, on the company, whatever it is, we're just going to have this massive loss of industrial knowledge or industry, historical knowledge. What's the right word? Institutional knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it's called. With that silver tsunami, that tsunami is just going to leave. They're going to be like, we're done. We've done enough. So I think it's important for companies to see that this wave is coming and make those meaningful partnerships with the new people, the newest emerging people. They may not even be young. It's people that are choosing safety as their second career. Like I would see construction workers, they're like, I'm done working with my tools. I want to do what you do. I'd say, great, let's train you. So it's people that are young, that are heavily influenced by tech, and it's people that are on a second career that, so I don't want to see AI, non contextual AI, replace the people that are retiring because I feel like that's
Yeah.
starting to happen. And I don't think anyone's really put their finger on it quite yet, but I have seen companies doing it well where they're meaningfully taking, someone who's retirement ready into like an 80-20, where it's like 20% is the work they usually do, but 80% now is mentoring, onboarding, job shadow, phone a friend resource within the company. So I think that's the way to go.
I think that's huge. And honestly, I will say, I've met some folks kind of in that role, and I actually think they'll get more retention from those gentlemen if they put them in that position. There is something great about teaching, and I think a lot of those people who retired will really pass on. I mean, they'll genuinely care. They cared about the industry and going out and feeling like they can give that back, I think it's super powerful. And yeah, I mean, why not leverage that?
Yeah. Organizations have to make the space for it. They have to
They have
make
to
the
make the
structure
space.
for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. All right. Well, I guess a couple rapid fires and we're going to close. So,
Okay.
underrated safety belief. Do you have an underrated safety belief? I know.
Oh, I'm my great friend Jason Lucas, I'm channeling him right now. So it's
Okay.
people over everything.
Okay. Perfect. That's money. Most overrated safety metric.
TRIR.
I was going to say okay, it's good. I'm going to have to change the questions because so far I think it's
Yeah.
5 for 5 that every safety leader I've talked to,
Well,
TRIR.
TRIR, DART, EMR. That like
Yeah,
you
it's a
walk
it's a
in with that
package.
billboard on your forehead knowing what
Yep.
your safety metrics are. Like no
I love
one
it.
a lot of people don't care about that.
No, it's good. Hopefully we can slowly drive some of that
Yeah.
change, here on the ground. So if you could talk to like leadership or the CEO of a company and, from a safety lens, send them a video, give them some content, something, what would you recommend for people out there?
Oh, I've done this in the past, but it was come with me. Come with
Oh,
me
love
to
it.
this job because when you have like your most problematic site, chances are the executive hasn't been there.
No
They have to
idea.
get their eyes on it.
Yep.
So it would be,
Ooh, I
let's
like
go.
that. You're the first person too that said that. A lot of times it's like a book or a piece of content, which is great because a lot of these people, they're coming in and they're trying to get adoption. But actually, I think that's the favorite answer I've gotten so far. No one has
Yeah,
said
I
that.
don't think we have to teach our executives new safety terms or get them, to understand psychological safety or HOP or anything like that. They need to understand what's going on at their own
Like
jobs.
real. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Because yeah, they are walking those jobs sometimes, but they are probably never doing it from the
They get the
lens.
executive tour.
You get the
Here's what
executive
we've
tour.
done.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
exactly. We need some undercover safety bosses out
Yes.
there. I like that a
Yes,
lot.
absolutely.
All right. Well, it's been an amazing, amazing session. I got a lot out of it.
Thank
Hope
you.
everyone listening did as well. Where can people find you
On the internet,
on
on
the internet?
LinkedIn probably is
She's
the best
everywhere.
place. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much focus on LinkedIn, so
Okay.
find me on LinkedIn. There's only one other Abby Ferri, and she does something completely different. She's a teacher. She probably hates I have all the Abby Ferri
Love it.
stuff, but it's okay.
I
So
love it.
LinkedIn, I also have Safety Abby on Instagram and Facebook, where I sometimes post more like visual, type of content, sometimes more irreverent content than what I would have on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Perfect. Well, awesome. And thank you so much for the time today. I'm going to close this out and we'll see you guys next week for another one.
Thanks.